too many of us are busy collecting recipes. We don't learn to collect meals. We don't learn to build meals. Now hear me out. Chances are you have a bunch of saved, or you might have a folder on your phone, on Instagram, with all these recipes to try. How do I know? Because I have a recipes to try folder. And while I might try one or two of them, what I realized over time was collecting these recipes because they seem like a good idea didn't really move the needle as far as learning to build meals. So while it might give me an idea for a particular aspect of a meal, ultimately what happens is the meal isn't complete for me. And I see that a lot with people when I used to work with nutrition clients, but also I see that in general when people, ask for recipes, or the way they demand of bloggers to give free, just to list out a recipe. A recipe is, yes, a set of instructions, but if you don't understand what you're building, then a recipe is just going to stay in that folder, especially when you find yourself tired, when you're sick, when you have decision fatigue, when you have picky eaters that you need to provide for. A recipe doesn't help you in that situation. What does? Learning how to build meals. And I myself, as somebody who has had to move away from that, to be honest, recipes were oftentimes, yes, a guideline, a loose guideline, but most of the times I will build a meal and maybe inspired, a meal that's probably inspired by a recipe. So for example, I might do maple roasted chicken, which was a recipe I saw by this creator, beautiful recipe, and I knew what I would pair that with, and I did. But the recipe itself then inspired me to do other things. But because I have learned how to put meals together, it doesn't matter what the recipe that I'm going to use or the recipe that I'm going to be inspired by. I know what builds a meal. And a balanced meal, if you're somebody who's interested in eating that kind of way, really consists of 4 things: protein, carbs/fiber, veggies/fiber, and healthy fats. Now I like to add, there's a 5th thing for me as part of my framework, and I call it yum factor, which is basically the thing that either brings the meal together or adds some kind of satisfaction factor to the meal. So it makes the meal taste extra good. This might be a sauce, this might be, some crunch. And the thing about that yum factor is that it can fit into any one of these categories. It could be a healthy fat, it could be some kind of carb, it could be some kind of fruit. But the point there is, if you want to have a balanced meal, you want to think of putting these things together. And recipes oftentimes only focus on one aspect of it. Maybe that's the protein, maybe that's the carb, maybe that's the healthy fat. And as long as you understand what builds a meal, it doesn't matter the recipe that you get. You have a foundation on which you can build to nourish yourself in any given moment, no matter the ingredients. And I say that as somebody who gets really excited, no matter how tired I am, at the prospect of putting a meal together. And I like to call this, throw it together and see what happens. It combines curiosity and experimentation. And with that balanced meal concept, framework, system in mind, I want to say maybe 8 out of 10 times, I have something that is delicious and that is satisfying. And I think this is something anybody can accomplish. So pick any 4 ingredients. Let's start with, say you have canned salmon. I'm going to use a very basic. Canned salmon, that's your protein, canned pink salmon. Let's say you have maybe some rice. Or forget rice. Let's say you have some sandwich bread. Let's say you have, if you look in your refrigerator, all right, let me back up. Before you put a meal together and you have these things in mind, you've got your protein, you've got your veggies, your carbs, and your healthy fats. Those things make up the meal and then something to make it yummy. Each of those components, then you either need to fix those separately and put it together, or throw them together to combine it into one thing. So you can think of maybe a lasagna as something that is a one-pot meal. Think of it like that. But regardless, you still have these four things, and how you prepare them is up to you, right? But I am just focusing on the broader concept of what a balanced meal looks like and how you can put that together with anything you have. So we have that pink salmon. We have the sandwich bread. So we have carbs right away, and we have the protein. And we have 2 out of the 4. We want to balance it some more. So we can add some kind of vegetable. And I want to clear up, vegetable does not just mean salad. Things that are used as seasonings, like your onion, your bell peppers, those are also vegetables, right? So chop up some sweet pepper and onion, toss that in with your salmon, and some healthy fats. Could be a dressing with olive oil, vinegar, some salt and pepper, add a little mustard to that, or Dijon mustard, mix that up. Or maybe some mayo, mix that in, add some salt, some pepper, some all-purpose seasoning maybe to give it a little, a little more flavor. Mix that up together, toast your bread, put that on your bread, and there you have more or less a balanced meal. You could add some avocado to that for some additional fats. You could add some chili crunch to that for a little extra spice, a little extra flavor. That's the extra yum. You could add some avocado for some extra yum, but it's also fat. You see what I'm getting at? Building a meal because of those random ingredients. Let's use something else. We've got chicken. We've got, I think, some coleslaw. You've got a bagel. All right, let me move away from bread. You've got some rice. Let's use rice. And you've got some cabbage. Let's say you have purple cabbage, green cabbage, some carrots. You have a bag of that in your fridge because you buy that from the store. Or you had some chopped up to make a coleslaw. That right there can become a stir fry. Okay? You throw the chicken in the wok, you season it up with some all-purpose seasoning. That right there is for flavor. Add a little salt, you get your all-purpose seasoning. You've got and then your chicken is the protein. You've got your rice ahead of time, and you've got those vegetables, and you're gonna throw that together in the wok. Stir fry the vegetable, stir fry the chicken, remove it, then you add the vegetables, saute that a little bit, and then you add something maybe like some soy sauce or some, oyster sauce, if you want to add a little Asian flavor to it. That's a quick little sauce, maybe some soy sauce, dark soy sauce, a little sugar, some rice vinegar, mix that up. That's a quick little sauce. Toss the chicken back in there, add the sauce to that, reheat your rice, have that over rice. Right there you have a complete meal. You've got the chicken, you've got the rice, you've got the vegetables. And then for a little extra yum, the sauce is yummy. You could then add, I don't know what you'd add to this Asian, maybe some, seaweed you could add over that, or maybe avocado again. I love avocado. But my point there is knowing how to build a meal is going to carry you or go with you no matter the situation. Because whether it's a sandwich or a snack plate, as long as you have that concept in mind, what does a balanced meal look like? And as long as you have that in mind, you can put something together no matter what. I put things together from a convenience store to make a snack. And while it's not a full-blown meal, it's something. And I would always say something is better than nothing. Take it a step further. Imperfectly doable beats perfectly not done. So even if you attempt to build a balanced meal and it's missing one thing, So if it's missing, say, some healthy fats, okay, that's one meal out of however many meals you have for the day. If you're missing protein at another meal, that's again one meal out of the day. Looking at this thing on a bigger picture or zooming out is far more helpful than hyper focusing on every single solitary meal. So recipes are great, they're good for inspiration, and they teach things as well. Recipe teach you about flavors, it teach you cooking methods. But I want to say a reliance on recipes, while does serve a purpose for certain people, or does have a purpose regardless, no matter what, it comes in handy. They do come in handy. Learning to build a meal is going to serve you a lot better than relying on recipes, because honestly, sometimes the recipe won't hit. Sometimes some of the instructions don't make sense for you. Sometimes the method is not working out the way they've described it, or the meal just doesn't turn out the way they said it would. No matter how much you could have followed the recipe to the T. Yes, so a lot of bloggers will test their recipes, yes. But again, oven temperature, all kinds of things will impact your outcome. However, if you understand how to build your meal, a recipe is just one component of that meal. And knowing the different components of the meal allows you to adjust, allows you to pivot when you need to, right? Because honestly, you're not going to be motivated every day. Maybe you're somebody who cooks every day. You're not going to be motivated or inspired to do it every day. Sometimes you might draw for the recipe. Sometimes you might not have the capacity to pay attention to a recipe. You're not going to have the energy every single day to put a meal together or to get into the kitchen and cook. So what are your options? What are your low effort foods that you can draw for? What are the convenience foods you can draw for? What are the things that are going to allow you to nourish yourself no matter what? So learning to build a meal is how I've learned to better nourish myself as I stepped away from dieting. Because there's also that people who focus on dieting oftentimes miss the satisfaction portion of it. I'm not going to go into it, but from my own experience, that is an observation I have made. And so, because the sacrifice is always going to be satisfaction for the end goal, which is weight loss. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not addressing that. I am saying learn to build a meal, and it can help you in any single situation. Collect recipes. Get inspiration from them. Not collect them. Get inspiration from recipes. Don't just collect them for collecting them's sake, because they won't teach you anything if you don't learn to build a meal outside of a recipe. That's my process. That's how I learn to build meals. That's how I'm building meals. That's how I encourage and share with anybody I talk to about learning about how to build meals to nourish yourself, morning, noon, and night. Okay, that's what I teach, and that's what I share in the weekly dose. That's what I talk about on this YouTube channel. That's what I talk about on my Instagram. No matter what it is that I am sharing, it's with the premise that a meal can be built with what you have, as long as you keep in mind those 5 things if you include my yum factor, right? So thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe to the channel, share it with somebody you know who needs to know that learning to build a meal will serve you far more than just collecting recipes. All right, see you on the next one.